I was not a fan of the original Beetlejuice. I know that might be a surprise to some people who think of me as a Tim Burton fan, but I'm not. And it also wasn't part of my childhood, so I didn't have that nostalgia factor in watching this sequel. It was fine. I liked it better than the original, but I also felt that it wasn't anything special. So I can't exactly give my full recommendation on this.
Do you want to give people a breakdown of what this film was about?
No, nothing happened. What are you talking about? There's no plot.
In the film...
Do you want me to read out a synopsis?
Yes, the synopsis, yes.
Okay, fine. After an unexpected family tragedy, 3 generations of the Dietz family return home to Winter River. Still haunted by Beetlejuice, Lydia Dietz's life is turned upside down when her rebellious teenage daughter, Astrid, played by Jenna Ortega, discovers the mysterious model of the town in the attic, and the portal to the afterlife is accidentally opened. With trouble brewing in both realms, it's only a matter of time until someone says Beetlejuice's name 3 times and the mischievous demon returns to unleash his very own brand of mayhem.
Let's address the controversy before we get started, so that
What
people can
controversy?
the stuff with the actor Jeffrey Jones.
Is it getting that much attention?
I don't know, but people are going to bring it up in the comments, so it's fair to at least mention here. So in the original film, Lydia's father is played by an actor named Jeffrey Jones, who is not in this movie, but heavily referenced, shown in photos, claymation, and then seen decapitated with no head.
Right.
Because they were not able to put the actor in this film because he was arrested in 2002 for doing very, very bad things. With
children.
I can read you. It says in November of 2002, he was arrested and charged with violating California Penal Code Section 311.4, use of a minor to perform prohibited acts. He subsequently pled no contest to the charge of inducing a 14-year-old boy to pose for sexually explicit photos and was sentenced to 5 years of probation.
Yeah.
He has acted since then. Seems like every couple of years he gets a role.
But they decided to leave him out of this movie.
He is not in this movie, but
paying tribute to his character from the original movie nonetheless.
And the reason I want to mention it is because people were saying that they were paying tribute to the actor in this. And, there is a distinction to be made that they're paying tribute to the character, not the actor. But a lot of people had fair concerns to say, why would you include him at all? Say he died and then
how do you just
move on?
fridge a character who's dead in the movie Beetlejuice, where everyone who is dead is actually
correct
alive in the movie? So that's kind of a difficult situation that they had to sidestep. But aside from that, I don't know. I don't feel strongly about any of it. It was just kind of a lot of random LOL, so random stuff that was thrown together. It didn't make a lot of sense.
If you like Tim Burton's aesthetic, this may appeal to you. It certainly has a lot of storylines. You don't just have Astrid and the boy she meets. You don't just have Astrid and Lydia. You don't just have Lydia and her new boyfriend. You don't just have Delia and Lydia. You don't just have Beetlejuice and Lydia. You don't just have Beetlejuice and his wife, played by Monica Bellucci. I think that character's name is Dolores. You don't just have the cop, played by Willem Dafoe. You have all of this stuff, and it fails in a lot of ways to find a succinct way of telling the story that builds momentum. Rather, it feels in a lot of ways like various storylines are just kind of thrown one to the next, to the next, to the next, all of which kind of coalesce under Tim Burton's visual aesthetic, which is what really holds it together and keeps it feeling like a movie.
That's what draws people, really, is that it's a Tim Burton film, and it looks and feels like a Tim Burton film. I'm honestly surprised that they were able to fit this into an hour and 44-minute movie. That's really impressive in and of itself, but still, it just felt haphazard, and like there were a lot of loose ends, and then they didn't know how to end it. The ending was very bizarre, and it didn't feel like they planned on how to end the movie, so they were just like, F it, like make a random cutscene. Monica
Bellucci's character of Dolores could have just been completely excised from the movie. They could have just gotten rid of her entirely.
So there's trouble in the underworld because Beetlejuice's ex-wife is coming after him, either to suck his soul out of his body or to get back with him. I can't really tell. She has like 2 lines in the whole movie.
I will say that from a personal perspective, you said you like this one a little bit more than you like the original Beetlejuice. I prefer the original Beetlejuice a little bit more to this one, but just barely. I liked Winona Ryder as Lydia in the first movie more than I like Jenna Ortega as Astrid in this movie as the teenage protagonist.
You said that was because Lydia's character in the original is more of a passive, like, what is it? Despondent.
She's despondent. She's bummed about the world. Nobody gets me. Yeah. And in this one, you get a more forceful version of that.
Astrid is more angry.
Yes.
And she's more outspoken.
Yeah.
And she's more, as you said, whiny. She's more rebellious,
yes.
I think, too. So she's different from Lydia's teenage self.
If you go to see, look, Catherine O'Hara is still the best part of this movie, just the way that she, in my opinion, was one of the best parts of the first movie. Yeah. She gets to play the same self-interested, stuck-up artist that she was in the first one. And you can tell that she's having a blast with that. My favorite scene in the first movie is, of course, the dinner party scene. And when you watch it, you look at Catherine O'Hara and you can just see the art nerd in all of these actors loving doing that, and that appeals to me. And that's really what the majority of the third act of this film is, or at least from the point where they enter into the church at the end where the wedding is supposed to take place. It's one big song number that looks like they spent a lot of time on, and they have a lot of fun with it, but it felt it felt more interesting in the first one to me personally, because it wasn't as layered and extravagant.
I think we should address the name checking of climate change.
Didn't bother me. It was like 2 seconds. I didn't think about it after that. If they'd done the movie 20 years ago, it would have been about the ozone layer. And the idea is that in a pitch meeting, they pitch Astrid as a pragmatic do-gooder who's everything the opposite of her mom, who works on a show about ghosts.
Yeah, so
right?
Astrid is, from the beginning of the movie, in charge of her school's climate action club. And she's putting up a poster for it. It's not heavily focused on, but I just chalked it up to, she's into that kind of thing in honor of her dead dad's legacy.
Who was an activist type of guy. Okay.
So that makes sense.
The Mary Curie bit was the more relevant form of identity politics and feminism.
Yeah. So for Halloween, Astrid dresses up as Marie Curie, who, according to her in the movie, is a feminist icon who discovered radiation. Yeah. I just want to fact check this real quick. Community note. Yeah. I looked up who discovered radiation. It wasn't her. It says Henry Becquerel discovered radioactivity in 1896, but his doctoral student, Marie Curie, coined the term stolen valor. Yep. But they did make Astrid shout that scientist out as a feminist icon.
So one of the things that I did like is that at the very least, as much as I didn't like the more forceful personality of Astrid, it does clash heavily with the more passive personality of Lydia. Right? Yes. Which makes for an interesting bit of character development. There's a moment of them up in the attic where they bond over looking at old photos, and that was where I thought there was some actual light in the movie there between the two characters. But they're kind of consistently nerfed because Lydia's got this side storyline with this wretched producer boyfriend who wants to marry her for her money.
Yes.
And it's very clear from the beginning.
He's obsessed with therapy.
So again, there are too many characters in this movie to make it feel like it builds a coherent storyline and narrative throughout.
Yeah.
It suffers the most from the fact that it's overcrowded.
Yeah, and there's no love in it. I think that's tough.
What do you like between actual romance or
comparing it to the original? Obviously, what is Alec Baldwin's character in the original? I don't remember their names, but you have the dead couple in the original movie
who love each other,
who are in love, and that's nice, and there's no strife there. But in this movie, no one is at peace with each other.
And they even develop a sense of affection for Lydia. And they grow close to Lydia throughout the movie in the original. And you don't feel the same here. There's get a little bit of it at the end with Delia after what happens to her. Again, I don't know how much we'll spoil about that.
She reunites with her husband.
Yes.
But there's no, other than that, there's no through line of a loving relationship between anyone.
Which would have gone a long way. And again, you get an actor like Willem Dafoe who's literally just tacked on here into a storyline where he's kind of after Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
And
it was just weird.
You get a great actor. The storyline didn't
Monica
really need to be
Bellucci and Willem Dafoe did not need to be in this movie.
No.
Like, it wouldn't have made a huge difference if they weren't in it. Honestly, they didn't even need Lydia's husband to be in the movie. They didn't even need that side plot either. It should have just focused on Astrid wanting to see her father again.
And the boy that
she met.
She gets duped. She gets duped by a boy, and that storyline to me was the most interesting, and it was like halfway through the second act, and then it's gone as soon as it starts.
It was entertaining, but it was predictable because I had watched Wednesday, and literally the exact same plot line was used in Wednesday with Jenna Ortega. She meets a boy, he's very unassuming, and then it turns out he's evil. So they repeated that again.
It still has strong set design. Danny Elfman does fantastic with the music on here. Like the score is good. It evokes Tim Burton. It's gonna do well at the box office this weekend. I assume it's predicted to make over $100 million. You could say that the fact that the movie is unfocused is helped a little bit because the pace is so frantic. It would be worse if it was unfocused in a slog.
Yeah.
But everything moves so quickly that it's not all that awful.
No, it's not hard to watch at all. It was fun. It was a fun watch, but I just didn't think it had the sentimentality of the original.
Correct.
And the meaning, and there was no real resolution to any of it, honestly.
I think they should have made Astrid, since in the movie, Lydia now has like a television show about being not a ghost hunter, but she's like a psychic medium, and she's on TV. I would have loved it if they would have given Astrid her own YouTube channel where she debunks stuff.
I said
that would have been hilarious.
If you wanted to contrast Lydia with this teenage daughter who's rebellious and has a strained relationship with her, they should have made more effort in both aesthetics and personality to make that happen. Where perhaps Astrid is like a rationalist atheist who's like super against everything supernatural. And they did communicate that she doesn't believe in ghosts, but it wasn't really a focal point.
She also dresses
gothish, and it's like, okay, I get it. Jenna Ortega is in a Tim Burton movie, but you could have made her more normal because Lydia, her mom, who she's rebelling against, is also like goth looking. So
she could have maybe dressed more like her
direction.
She could have dressed more like Delia.
Right. Yeah. Something else. But it just didn't. There was too much in this movie that didn't make sense, and it didn't seem like they put the same level of care into this one.
And I think one of the reasons is I love the aesthetic of the first one because it was made in the late 80s, and the 80s outfits, the 80s, the 80s cars, the homes, everything about it works for me in a way that's
even the pace of conversation is so different,
tied to nostalgia that's not real because it wasn't made to be nostalgic. It was actually made in the 80s. I'm just watching it with the modern lens. Look, I think if you like Tim Burton movies, if you're a fan of his work, and obviously overcrowding is not something new to Burton, so like this might not bother you, and certainly I think that there's going to be a lot of people that will leave this movie happy. I think the audience score so far is pretty high. Right?
Yeah, it will be. I'm expecting it to be very popular, but people don't know what they're missing. That's the problem.
And
that's why it's going to get a high audience score. People don't know what they're missing.
I do want to warn against. Look, is the mention of climate change lame? Yes. It's so negligible in its thematics that it's going to be used to scare people off going to see it. There's plenty of reasons not to see this movie, depending on how tightly you hold yourself to like story structure and what type of movie is enticing for you. If you're looking for like tightly edited, tightly focused films, this is not the movie for you. It's frantic, it's fast paced, and it's all over the place. But the minor mentions of a teenage activist are so part of the normal world that
It's looked down
to
upon in the
pretend
movie
to pretend
anyway.
like that's not something that could happen in the real world is ridiculous now.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not anything that should ruin your experience of the movie.
Now, if she was mentioning it as the movie went on, like if it goes on and she like complains to her mom that they're driving because they're driving a Tesla, like if they put him in like a regular car and she's complaining to her mom that they're not driving an electric car, now we're getting into the realm of annoying.
Yeah, there was nothing like that.
There was no further mentions of it beyond it. It was fine. I think that's one of those things where one mention of something becomes more than it actually is now.
It gets overblown
Yeah.
because people want an excuse to boycott something or be outraged about something. The real problem is it's not woke. It's just not. It's not a great movie that's going to be remembered.
But again, it's Burton, so style and aesthetics matter more to a lot of people.
Yeah, this movie is going to capture all of the people that they thought were going to watch the Crow reboot.
Yeah, you're 110% right.
So it's going to be a big hit in my prediction.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.